He was the new kid, quiet, watchful, just trying to blend in. But at Millstone High, being different made him a target. They saw his skin, his silence, his second-hand clothes, and thought he'd be easy to break. What they didn't know was that beneath that calm exterior lived a fighter forged in places far harsher than any school hallway. The moment they cornered him, laughing like it was all a game, they lit a fuse they couldn't put out. Because when the line finally snapped, nothing about their world, or his, would ever be the same. But how does a boy who only wanted peace end up in a fight that changed everything? Kareem Tolliver didn't arrive at Millstone High looking for trouble. He walked through those front doors with a worn backpack, a faded hoodie, and a plan to keep his head down. A transfer student halfway through the year, he was used to silence, used to slipping into the background where eyes didn't linger too long. Back in Detroit, his uncle taught him that sometimes survival meant moving invisible, never giving people a reason to notice you. But Millstone wasn't the kind of place that let kids like Kareem go unseen. The polished sneakers, the loud laughs, the way students carried themselves, it all made him stand out without trying. Every glance at his second-hand clothes, every whisper when he passed, reminded him he didn't belong. Still, Kareem ate his lunch alone, finished his homework, caught the bus home, and trained quietly in his uncle's gym. He wanted nothing more than to focus on graduating, not proving himself. Yet beneath that calm exterior was strength. Strength he hoped he'd never need to show. And for a while it seemed like silence would be enough, until the wrong eyes decided it wasn't. Because once the jokes turned to shoves, and the whispers turned to lies, Kareem realized he couldn't hide forever. But what happens when silence is mistaken for weakness? By the end of Kareem's first week at Millstone High, the whispers had already started. It wasn't just about the way he dressed or the fact that he kept to himself. It was the silence. The way he didn't react when someone cracked a joke at his expense. The way his eyes never flinched when they tried to get under his skin. To kids like Brock Simmons, silence wasn't strength. It was defiance. And defiance couldn't be ignored. It started small, a shove in the hallway that no teacher noticed. A locker marked with the words, "Charity Case" in smudged marker. Gum pressed deep into the vents where Kareem stored his books. They wanted to get a rise out of him, but Kareem never gave them the satisfaction. He just walked on, the same steady pace, the same careful calm. He told himself it didn't matter. That keeping his head down would make it all pass. But in Millstone, silence was gasoline, and Brock was holding a lighter. By the second week, the cafeteria became a stage. Brock would throw loud comments across the room, his voice cutting through the noise. "You from Detroit, right? You bring your bulletproof vest, or leave it at home?" Laughter followed, sharp and cruel. Not everyone joined in, but no one stopped it either. Kareem sat alone at the back table, eating his sandwich like the words didn't sting. But each joke left a mark, not on his face, but deep inside where he buried it. Soon the rumors came that Kareem had been kicked out of his old school, that he had a record, that he'd fought a teacher once and put him in the hospital. None of it was true, but the lie was louder than the truth. And with every whisper, the distance between him and the rest of the school grew wider. One afternoon in gym class, Kareem got paired with Brock for drills. The coach barked orders, the boys lined up, and Brock tossed the basketball at Kareem's chest just a little too hard. Kareem caught it, bounced it once, and passed it back clean. But when the ball slammed into Brock's chest with a sharp echo, the other boys snickered. Brock forced a smile. But in his eyes, the line had already been drawn. From that moment on, it wasn't just teasing. It was war. His books knocked to the floor in science class. A trip near the vending machines that sent him sprawling. Whispers of psycho when he walked past. And through it all, Kareem never swung back, never snitched, never gave them what they wanted. But Brock wasn't satisfied. To him, Kareem's calm wasn't weakness. It was a challenge. And the more Kareem refused to break, the more Brock burned to see him fall. The breaking point came on a cold Friday afternoon. Kareem stayed late to help the custodian stack old desks, choosing the quiet over the chaos of the parking lot. But when he rounded the corner of the gym, his path was blocked. Brock stood there with Logan and Ty at his side, all three wearing that fake casual grin that meant trouble. Kareem's backpack hung over one shoulder. His pace didn't change. He'd faced this before. Different streets, different faces, but the same game. They thought numbers made them stronger. They thought silence meant fear. Brock called out, his voice sharp in the empty lot. "What makes you so special, Tolliver? Sitting alone, staring like you're better than us?" Logan circled to the side. Ty leaned back with his hands in his pockets, chewing gum like it was a show. Kareem stopped just 10 feet away, eyes steady, voice calm. "I'm just minding my business," but they didn't want calm. They wanted a fight. Logan lunged first, shoving Kareem's chest. He didn't budge. He didn't swing. "Back up," he warned, his voice low. But Logan came again, this time with a wild punch. He never saw the counter coming. In one swift move, Kareem stepped inside, twisted, and dropped Logan flat against the pavement. The smack echoed against the dumpsters. Ty froze. Brock's smirk faltered. For a second, the balance shifted. But Brock wasn't ready to back down. Not yet. Because once pride is wounded, violence is never far behind. And what happened in the next 12 seconds would change Kareem's place in Millstone forever. Brock lunged, rage clouding every move. He was bigger, louder, and sure of his strength, but size didn't matter when control belonged to the quiet one. Kareem slipped under the swing, pivoted, and drove an elbow into Brock's ribs. The sound wasn't loud, but the impact was enough to fold him, breath knocked out in an instant. Ty froze where he stood, gum stuck between his teeth as if he'd just watched gravity bend. Logan groaned from the ground, clutching his side, disbelief painted across his face. For 12 heartbeats, the world stopped. Kareem didn't gloat, didn't taunt. He just stood, shoulders squared, breath steady, the picture of discipline his uncle drilled into him. But to everyone watching, it didn't look like control. It looked like danger. That was the moment the assistant principal, Mr. Langford, rounded the corner. He saw Brock on the ground, Logan against the dumpster, Ty wide-eyed, and Kareem standing tall, calm, untouched. To him, the story wrote itself. One black boy against 3 white students, and somehow the 3 looked like victims. "What's going on here?" Langford barked. Brock was quick to his feet, desperate to flip the narrative before truth could settle. "He jumped us," he gasped. "He's crazy, man. He attacked out of nowhere." Logan nodded weakly. Ty said nothing at all. Kareem's jaw tightened, but his words were measured. "They came at me. No anger, no excuses, just fact. But facts don't weigh the same in every mouth." Langford's eyes narrowed, and in his silence was an old story. One Kareem already knew by heart, that no matter how it started, it would end with him painted as the threat. Minutes later, in the office, the whispers had already spread. By the time Kareem sat down across from Brock, the halls buzzed with the version of the fight Brock wanted them to believe. To most, Kareem wasn't the quiet new kid anymore. He was the one who snapped, the dangerous one. The proof of every rumor they'd already decided was true. And as he sat there, steady but alone, Kareem felt the weight of it. The way truth could be buried under lies. The way silence could be mistaken for guilt. The way a moment of survival could rewrite who you are in the eyes of everyone around you. He had defended himself. He had done nothing wrong. But in this school, in this town, in this world, was that ever going to matter? Because the real fight wasn't on the pavement. It had just begun. By Monday morning, the story had spread through every hallway of Millstone High. Kareem wasn't just the new kid anymore. He was the fighter, the one who took down Brock and his crew. But it didn't come with respect. It came with fear. Students shifted away from him in class. Lunch tables fell silent when he walked past. Even teachers seemed cautious, their eyes lingering too long, their instructions clipped and careful. What struck Kareem hardest wasn't the fight itself, but how quickly people had decided who he was. To them, he wasn't a boy who wanted peace. He was a threat, a headline waiting to happen. His silence no longer meant safety, it meant danger. His strength, instead of being seen as control, was turned into a weapon they assumed he carried everywhere. At home, Uncle Reggie tried to remind him of what mattered. When you defend yourself and win, people see strength. And strength scares the weak, he said. Kareem nodded, but inside he felt the sting of something deeper, because he hadn't asked to prove anything. He had only wanted to be left alone, and yet this was the reality. For kids like him, the rules were never the same. 3 boys could corner him, shove him, spread lies about him, but the moment he stood his ground, he became the problem. That wasn't new. It wasn't even surprising. It was the same story his uncle warned him about. The same story his community knew too well. A story where defending your dignity could still make you guilty. Kareem carried that weight, not because he lost control, but because he didn't. He had done everything right, walked away, stayed silent, held back. But in the eyes of a system already waiting for him to stumble, none of that mattered. And that's the impact of racism that lingers long after the bruises fade. It's not always the fists or the fights, it's the way a narrative can twist. The way a lie can stick harder than the truth. The way one moment of survival can become a lifetime of judgment. Kareem's story is just one, but it echoes the experiences of countless others who learned too young that strength makes you dangerous, that silence makes you guilty, that your skin decides the story before you ever get to speak. So the question is, how many more Kareems will it take before the world sees past the rumors, past the fear, and finally listens to the truth? Because until then, boys like Kareem will keep walking into schools, into streets, into jobs, carrying the same quiet strength and the same heavy burden. And maybe the real fight isn't the one in the parking lot. Maybe the real fight is against the silence of those who see injustice and choose to look away. The story doesn't end with Kareem. It never does. The only question is, what will we do with it now?